This goes back to both the last session, but also Ned Landsman's paper from the first day, which suggests, I think, a way of our thinking, perhaps, of the compromises that are deeply embedded in the revolution, which I think both of you are gesturing to. And we haven't had much discussion about what the Declaration of Independence meant at the time it was promulgated and how it was understood by people then. And I think it was understood in multivalent ways in that period. But there's also a second compromising document, founding document, which was the Articles of Confederation. And the reference from up in the balcony about perhaps America being a fractured empire at the time of its creation, I think goes back to Ned's point on the yesterday about the Act of Union really holding together Scotland and England, and the American colonies were participatory in that, but once they pulled out of that, they had to negotiate among themselves. And I think you can see the First Continental Congress as really a diplomatic mission among different entities who had very different positions. And out of that came these compromises that then go on into the 19th century. And I think your Canadian example, David, is one in which those kind of fragmented and very diverse understandings come to the fore.
If you take a sort of structural histories of revolutions approach to things, one of the things which is very interesting about the American Revolution in terms of its institutional structure is that it initially has recourse to these extra-legal bodies, the committees of safety, and of course that is a form that's borrowed directly from the Glorious Revolution and is something which is repeated almost insistently in all the subsequent revolutions that I've laid out. In Canada, you have the hunters' lodges in Lower Canada, which operate in a kind of interesting way. Even in the Spanish revolutions, the Sociedades de Amigos operate as a kind of extra-legal social institution where a lot of the initial decision-making is made.
No, that's a very important point about the creation of a union of differing sovereign entities that have to come together and negotiate how they're going to function, and that's something that has to be a part of the new narrative. I know David Hendrickson's work and actually Peter Onuf's work about federal union. People thinking of the revolution as creating a nation all at once, and that's not it at all. It's a really desire to people to keep together so that they don't actually go to war with one another, or to prevent that kind of thing from happening. So it's a critical part of it. It's critical to the thing that I was talking about as well, with the sort of compromises about slavery, but also I think here, one thing that is not necessarily something about which they disagree is the place of blacks. I mean, the role of blacks and attitudes about African Americans in the North and the South and all the various entities. That is something that I would like to investigate more. I mean, I know it's just something that we take as a given, and so you say, well, of course that's how they felt, but teasing that out amongst the various sovereign nations, and this is something that people agree about, I think is something that's very, very important.